And some years ago, a friend of mine said to me, Elsa, how do you identify? I said, I'm Elsa Robinson. What are you talking about? She goes, oh, I couldn't even understand what she was trying to ask me. Because she wanted me to say I'm black, but I am Elsa Robinson. That's who I am. Mentor. Because we have to have an artist mentor where we're working. So then it's just like, why am I making this work? What am I saying? What tools am I using? How effectively am I using these tools? What method, what language do we need for transformative and socially liberating action in the face of oppression? So these are all the questions that come up from her or between us or between the profs during my studies. And so these are the kinds of questions that influence how I do my work, you know? So my visual arts practice officially started about 23 years ago when I made a decision to do it. So before that, I had done art, but that was when I decided that art was not an option. Art was a matter of best health for me. And that's when I decided to start the career. So when I started, I decided to work in batik. One, because I love batik, and two, because my favorite artist from Jamaica, which is where I grew up, who was our neighbor, who was like a big sister friend to me, was Jamaica's top batik artist. Her name was Dawn Scott. And she was a huge inspiration to me. I took courses with her at the School of Art in Jamaica. And so I really wanted to start with batik, which I did. I did about 3 or 4 pieces in batik, and then I had to stop because of the dye, the fumes from the dye, especially during the winter time. In the house where I don't have enough ventilation, were really messing with my lungs. So I couldn't continue with the batik, so I had to stop. And then around about that time, a friend of mine who is also an artist who was switching from painting, drawing to more photography work called me up and said, I have a whole set of paints. Do you want them? I said, yeah, sure, bring them, you know. so, so that's how I got my first set of oils and acrylics. He had given me brushes, not the best, newest brushes, but I had a set of brushes and I had paints. And so I started. So I started painting, and then very quickly went into collage work. Now my collage tendency towards collage work started from I was little. So my mom, sometimes we'd go to the beach or we'd go to the countryside just for a drive on a Sunday, or we go to the riverside, or driving through the countryside for whatever reason. And she'd stop and go, oh, and pick leaves and dried leaves and anything she saw that she found was really interesting. And then she'd bring them home and make floral arrangements with them. And so this whole idea of just finding things and putting them together to make beautiful things really stuck with me. So I remember my very first, one day I found a leaf that just the veins were there. Everything else had rotted except the veins perfectly. So I picked it up and picked up a little piece of wood and picked up some, and then I created my very, very first collage painting, and actually put it in an art show at school, because the high school I used to go to, every year we had an art show, an art competition. Of course, I didn't win anything, because I think at that point people kind of looked at it and went, yeah, that's all right. But it wouldn't have won any credit because it was so different than what everybody else was doing. So that's okay though. I was very proud of it, and I put it on a red satin background. It was beautiful. To me, it was absolutely beautiful. So that's where I kind of started with my collage tendency. Yes, so I've been doing mostly collage work, two-dimensional collage, right up until I would say about, yeah, 2017. So what happened in 2017 is that I went to do my master's degree. It was a distance learning, so we would go and do a residency and then come back. because the reason they structure it that way is that they want us to make art relevant to where we are, and so we come back to where we're from and we make art in that environment and then bring it, and so on and so on and so on. So the first semester, yes, the first semester I did a piece where it was a collage, but then I integrated twine and then had it falling in front. So it was because one of the critiques I got was that my work is very sculptural, and so how about coming off of the canvas? I should explore three-dimensional work. It's more actual sculpture, you know, which was really cool for me because when I did my bachelor's program, that's the first time I took lessons in sculpture and totally fell in love with sculpture. So to hear them say that my paintings were very sculptural, and so I thought, okay, so it's natural, I could do this. So then that was the first time I experimented with work coming off of the canvas in that way. And it was very successful in terms of the exploration that was happening. I mean, the image itself is beautiful, but of course, when we go to critiques, they critique where the artist started and where they are now in the journey, and how effective that shift is happening in terms of also the research that you're doing. It's really intense. So anyway, so what happened too for me was the research I was doing brought me into Afrofuturism, Afro-surrealism, Black feminism, and I was doing a lot of reading, watching videos, looking at the musicians, the authors, the visual artists, looking at the whole package, and also feminist art. And so, again, now questioning where my own art practice, what I felt it would be speaking to, because that's why I took the master's, as trying to figure out who I am really as an artist, and even reflecting in the dance I'm doing, even reflecting in the community work I'm doing. What is the driving force behind what I'm doing, and what is my basis for the work that I'm doing? And that was, I went in questioning myself. So that's the question I was trying to answer for myself in the master's program. And so by doing that research, that I wasn't really aware of a lot of those things prior to, you know. I was just doing my work, you know, I was just painting. I was like, oh, I think I want to do a portrait today, I'll do it, you know. It was more like that. As a result of that process, now I was started to move into the feminist art. And of course, when I was a little girl in elementary school, I learned embroidery, I learned applique. My mother, grandmother, aunties, they all did crochet, they all did knitting, they all did all these women's crafts. And I learned to sew. I used to sew my own clothes. So those are all skills I already had. So then coming into learning about Black feminism and feminist art and Afro-surrealism and having a more, those all were in sync with who I am. And the other thing that shifted for me after the master's program was people always know my work as really colorful, you know, lots of bright colors. But over here, if you can see, that's black and gold. So I was invited to do a show, not last year, year before, in by an African Caribbean Black community, to do a show for Black History Month. And one of the things that happens to me, of course, being born and raised in Jamaica, everybody says they're Jamaican. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you ask us who we are, we'll tell you we're Jamaican. You can look at us and see our, well, to some extent, our ethnic origin, to some extent, not always, you know. I mean, you can't look at me and tell my bloodline. You will look at me and say, she's African. Well, you would say she's Black, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know my bloodline that way. So I came to Canada. In Jamaica, your identity is your family. At least that's how I established my identity, is my family. Who is my mother? Who is my father? Who are my uncles and aunts? You know, what is the line that I'm coming from? These are my people. So, but coming to Canada, Black, which I remember teaching social studies grade 7 because I used to teach here. And I remember going through that whole social studies lesson where we're looking at the census results.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was Ukrainian, French, British, blah, 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 blah. It went on. East Asian, South Asian, it went on. So I said to the kids, very brilliant kids, very intelligent young people, I said to them, I want you to read this list and I want to tell you who in this room, I want you to tell me who in this room is not on the list. And they looked and they looked. I said, it's not a trick question. It's not like, you know, I just want to know if you notice this, right? I said, take your time. It's like, just read the list and tell me. And finally, a little boy, one of the students, a male student, put his hand up. I said, yes. He says, you're not on it. I said, why do you say that? He says, because the only thing on this list that could come close to describing you is a color word. And you're not a color. You're a person. Yeah. And I said, right. And I want you all to remember that. This list is not written correctly. And these are the kinds of things you have to watch for when you're studying Canadian history. You have to look at these details and understand, you know. So, because Black was on the list, but Jamaican wasn't on the list. And the reason maybe, I don't know, but when you go to Jamaica, you see people of all races, all what you call races. But if you ask us, we'll say, oh, I'm Jamaican. We're not going to tell you, if you meet somebody in Jamaica who is a Jew, they're not going to say, oh, I'm a Jew. No, they're going to say, I'm a Jamaican. Because they talk, they're the same, it's the same set of people, right? So, so my identity, and then some years ago, a friend of mine said to me, Elsa, how do you identify? I said, I'm Elsa Robinson. What are you talking about? She goes, oh, I couldn't even understand what she was trying to ask me. Because she wanted me to say I'm Black, but I am Elsa Robinson. That's who I am. And immediately I'm thinking, who is my mother? Who is my father? Who am I? This is who I am. Now, if you want to go into that, in Jamaica, you say, who is your mother? Oh, are you this Robinson or that Robinson? Oh, no, I'm that Robinson. Oh, that's the Robinson you are. Okay. Now, or immediately, if you know my family, and you know, you look at me differently. This is what happens. So you, oh, that's your family? Oh, okay. Are you looking at a job? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure, I think we might be able to. Yeah, like bam, 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 right? That's my experience. That's my identity. So anyway, so I come back to this Black and gold. So it's just the issue of being identified as color rather than as person. It's a really, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, the erasure.
I am totally into being a person of African heritage. Totally uber, like, I'm there, you know. But it's just then, is how it's dealt with here in Canada. That's an issue for me. So anyway, so then I thought, okay, Black History Month, Black art, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start making Black art, right? Because if you say Black art, Black is a color. It's not a culture. It's not a nothing. It's a color. So I thought, I'm going to start making Black art. So that's hence the Black. And then I thought, okay, which color would I pair with it though? I want to pair another color with it. And I was like, it can't be white because then, you know, we get back to that binary and it's just not working. Because it's so easily misunderstood, right? So I thought, gold. Because if you look in a lot of my paintings, I use a lot of gold in my paintings, even before I started using black and gold. And even before, so there was another influence where I saw this other artist, African American artist, who was using a very limited color palette, and it appealed to me because I use so many colors, and I thought, suppose you weren't able to, suppose you just had to limit yourself, which colors would you choose, you know? So it was also a challenge to myself, you know? And so I started doing black and gold work. So the black for me now, so prior to this decision, black in my paintings always represents power. Power. It represents the core of myself, where all of that power sits, you know? That space in myself, which is, you know, that when I go through healing, when I go through things and ease off and heal certain, we all go through healing. That is what takes up more space. So that is my black, that thing inside.
Yeah.
So then, of course, and then black is when a baby's in the womb. It's dark. It's a place of nurturing. And because I always come back to wombs, and it's my nature. So black inside the womb. Black when you put a seed in the earth. It's black. There's no light. There's no sun. That's where it picks its nutrients, and then you see it peep out, and then it comes out, and it starts to use the core, right? So for me, black is like the core, is a place of creativity. It's almost like the most divine color, because, and then black in painting, black is a combination. If you put, well, it is said, you put all the different colors of paint together, you're gonna get black. So, I mean, there's so much to it, you know? And then gold is purity. Gold is truth. Gold is immense value. You know, banks have gold, bars of gold stored, you know.
Yeah.
Gold is very valuable. So I couldn't think, so that's why I put the two together. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then I did the first, so that show, I did all my first series of 5 black and gold paintings. Collage, mixed media collage. And then since then, I got invited to do another show with Trex, Alberta. And I decided to do black and gold for that as well. And I was very nervous about doing black and gold because I'd never done it before. People are accustomed to seeing like what you see behind me here. And so I was afraid of bringing that piece of myself out to the public for scrutiny and, you know, what? Black? Elsa? Nah. You know, that kind of like, why is she doing black? Ah, you know?
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what, girl, you just have to be who you are. You just have to put it out there. But it has been such an amazing journey working with black and gold.